Hey guys, this is That Album Reviewer Guy here with yet another album review. Today, I will be reviewing Seether's new album, Isolate and Medicate. This is Seether's 6th album, and they haven't released an album in roughly about 3 years. And, I was expecting some good stuff after hearing the first single, Words as Weapons. So, let me go into detail with this album. So, the album opens up with the track See You at the Bottom, and this opens the album with a nice guitar riff that's repeated throughout pretty much the entire track, or at least the majority of it anyway. But it's not terrible. I mean, I like the riff, and I also like the lyrics in this track, and especially the way they're presented. I think they're sang in a nice way. Then the next track, Same Damn Life, is a bit different due to the fact that it features, well, for the one thing, that it's more of a bass-driven track, and it also features some high-pitched vocals, but I'm not completely sold on that. Not just the vocals, but not the track, like, in its entirety. Not really sold on it. Then we get into the next track, Words as Weapons, which I mentioned earlier. It has great lyrics, as well as nice instrumentation, and this was the easiest track for me to get into. I listened to it over and over and over again, no problem. Then we get into the next track, My Disaster, which has a nice softer guitar intro, which kicks into some, heavier instrumentals. Then that leads into Sean's vocals, which are backed up by some softer instrumentals, and the high-pitched vocals make a return in this track, even though they were only absent from the first and third tracks so far in this album. I'm not a big fan of these high-pitched vocals on this track especially, but, other than that, this is a pretty good track. I mean, not bad, but yeah, pretty good. Due to the fact that it does have some great instrumentation, as well as great presentation of the lyrics, especially in the chorus. Well done on the chorus. Then the next track, Crash, has, just you could say, like, a more mellow, like, toned down a little bit vibe than the previous track. There's nice, excuse me. There's some nice harmonization going on in the vocals on this track, especially in the first verse. And, this track kind of reminds me of a Daughtry song a little bit, due to the fact that, it's just a softer track, and the way the lyrics are presented kind of reminds me of the way that Daughtry's lyrics are presented in their songs. But I do like the tone and overall feel of the track. Then the next track, Suffer It All, opens with, a fairly softer, not softer, goodness gracious, I'm still thinking of Crash. Slightly heavier intro, which really changes the tone of the album after the softer track, Crash. And, this track features some harsh screams from Sean, as well as some heavy instrumentation from the entire band. However, the chorus gets a bit softer in the instrumentals, and the overall tune of the instrumentals changes, but it goes right back into the heavier vibe in the second verse. So it's one of those songs. Then the next one, Watch Me Drown, has a more happy sounding vibe to it as far as the instrumentals go. However, I feel as though the lyrics don't really match that all too well. In my opinion, the instrumentals and lyrics just don't mesh. Then Nobody Praying For Me, the next song, has a little bit of a country western vibe in the beginning, and this track features some harmonization of the verses as well. You got the lower pitch and then the higher pitch. The lower pitch reminds me of a bit of a, old school country western song, but, I'm not a big fan of the chorus. for me, it doesn't really work with the verses. Then the next track, Keep the Dogs at Bay, sounds way too familiar. I mean, it's like I've already heard this track before in the album, and I don't like that at all. Finally, Save Today. This track opens with an acoustic intro, which is followed by some piano, and the lyrics in this track, well, they're pretty solid, as well as the harmonization on them as well. The album does feature quite a bit of harmonization on the lyrics, and this is a pretty good soft track to end the album with, but I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites. All in all, the tracks were all over the place, really. There was no real flow. I mean, it just went from a heavier track to a softer track back to a heavier track with no real transition. And, I was expecting big things from Seether after hearing Words as Weapons. Yeah, I gotta say, this album was a little bit of a disappointment. I mean, I was expecting better from the band. Favorites on this album, See You at the Bottom, Words as Weapons, My Disaster, and Crash. Least favorites? Well, there's really only one, and that's Keep the Dogs at Bay. Overall, this album gets a 7 out of 10. It's not terrible. I'm probably going to pick it up eventually. I just really wish that it was a little bit better than it actually is. Work on that, Seether. Work on it. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about this album. The usual stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, like on Facebook. Link down there. And guess I'll see you guys next time. That Album Reviewer Guy, signing off.